punishable if Xavier can slow the game down, like you mentioned, play for the disengage, instead play to split Hong Kong Attitude's dive up and then punish those divers. That's a thing that they can do. In fact, it's a thing they have already done a couple of times, not during times where it would result into an actual map win. They've won some fights by doing that. They need to now win every fight by doing that.
And that was a curious statistic you saw up on your screens there. 2 losses to 1 win on this map for Hong Kong Attitude. That is not, by any measure, a positive win rate, not a good win rate. Xavier do have the 100% win rate, but it is only off the 1 performance. It's a tricky one, but there's opportunities here for Xavier.
Now let's take a look at this defense setup for Hong Kong Attitude already. We've talked about them being an aggressive team. Look where they are beginning. They are setting up a bit of a kill box here, crossfire damage from all the divers, and they're going to just stop up Xavier Esports, ideally right below where Ting is standing. That's the dive location.
This would potentially work very well against a dive from Xavier, but it won't be scouted out.
Are we scouting?
Yeah. He's going to spot out the quad tank here.
Oh, that's hard to dive into. That could be very deadly.
They've also given away the
They're being out-rotated?
They are. They had to suddenly chase them in here, and that puts them into this very contained space with all these tanks, all these health bars. And Hong Kong Attitude know it. Xavier
on the point.
They get to get over to the point. The pressure's on Hong Kong Attitude to find a way into this. That was excellent from Xavier. I mean, such a hard composition for them to dive anyway. Mango Jai is already going to be a casualty in the fight. That is how Xavier need to be able to play here. They just need to close out this fight.
And now we're starting to see lapse of judgment by Hong Kong Attitude. They couldn't quite decide how they were going to make that dive happen, so they didn't do it at all. And then Xavier rushed onto the point. Hong Kong Attitude didn't know what hit them. They're playing catch-up. You never see Hong Kong Attitude in this scenario play catch-up. They are the ones leading first. They are the ones putting the foot forward first. And for the first time, Xavier, they're the ones getting nice, such quick and easy cap on their Hong Kong Attitude. Far too slow. Didn't think I'd have to ever say that.
And the quick duck into the left, the rotate along the side there for Xavier. Hong Kong Attitude were chasing them to the point. That is not where you should be as the defender there. And like you said, it's not paying off anymore for Hong Kong Attitude, but this is where they should be able to dig in their heels a little bit longer. Yeah, EMP out. The coalescence is all Xavier really had at the top of that fight anyway. Xavier, they just need to accept that I'm going to get a snowball here, at least not just yet. It's time to back off and readdress it.
So the one thing that Hong Kong Attitude definitely have in their back pocket that is extremely good against what Xavier running is that Sombra EMP. Yeah. EMP shuts down just about everything that Xavier even have, including either of the support ultimates. Most of the tank ultimates here really shuts down the shielding efficiency from the tanks as well. Xavier cannot play against his EMP if Mui lands in the right spot. So now that they do have their own ultimates on the big tanks and really does not have an EMP, the time to strike is right now.
Xavier. It's a really unfortunate right click onto Olivier. The hack out means he goes down in spite of the sound barrier. That was a tool they so desperately needed.
lives.
Xiaolin getting out, and that means a right click hack onto Queen as well comes through. Kills are coming in for Azalea here, but honestly, Xavier feel a little bit up a tree without a ladder in this situation.
Another EMP.
Yeah, another EMP. This isn't Hong Kong Attitude closing out the kills though. They're still just kind of flooding back onto this one because of all the tanks they've been able to knock out one by one, they have yet to dislodge Azalea. He's been the one doing the work. He'll get to self-destruct here to stall out. It's bought time for the other tanks to enter, which has allowed this grab. CQB, sound barrier or no, is going to go down here. Hong Kong Attitude still kind of struggling to actually reset here. Mui is going to do it with a Bastion, and it totally pays off. It's enough DPS to get through the tanks. The element of surprise as well. That's not how I expected Hong Kong Attitude to stabilize, but if it works, it works.
There's a couple of misfires here, and don't forget that Xavier Esports actually committed into a fight where they didn't have player advantage. They had to fight for that player advantage, but they didn't even have a full 6 members.
Yeah.
Olivier died right at the start of that after being hacked by Mui. Then Xavier pushed with 5, got a decent amount of counter trades. The Graviton eventually came in from Olivier when he respawned, but it only caught, I believe it was CQB. That's not enough. You need to be able to get more. You need to use it at the spawn, even stop the members from Hong Kong Attitude from contesting the point. They only get 1/3.
Now Xavier, they're in that compositional catch-up for one thing, but it is the right call to make. They've still got 4 and a bit minutes to do about 4.5 total. Hong Kong Attitude should be able to start getting some work done on the defense. That's a bit of a funky direction for the self-destruct, but it does catch Olivier's mech. This gives them an opening, looking to get that aggressive dive on, should be able to take out these healers here. Nice hack onto Xiaolin actually, but him losing his mech isn't really the end of the world here. The fight's still going on. Hong Kong Attitude will win it, and because it's getting drawn out, Xiaolin's going to be able to re-mech by the end of it anyway, and Xavier are still going to have to pull back.
So there is one very specific timing here that you have to take into account, and that's the fact that both Sombras members are going to have EMP for the very next fight as soon as Xavier decide to fully reset here, because mind you, they're still losing a decent number of members, which does cost them a lot of time. We started with over 6 minutes, now we're down to just the 4. Hong Kong Attitude have an EMP, so does Xavier Esports. Xavier need to make sure Mui uses it first, then Xavier can either counter with an EMP or just reset.
Hey, there's your golden opportunity, right? But the Bionade onto Dreamer means he goes down. Xavier's still looking for an angle in for this EMP.
They shouldn't use it here. They need to use it on the point.
And that's the thing. Hong Kong Attitude have put them in a tough spot, but it's maybe going to start paying off for them because Hong Kong Attitude not quick enough on the retreat. Now Xavier, even though they're lacking THK, he'll be able to come in. Yeah, Mango going to have to pop out the Coalescence. THK is going to be able to rejoin the fight anyway, and Azalea can start to use this EMP as a closeout tool if he can find the angle. But this nano boost onto a Ting is going to make it really hard. Dreamer's down. Yeah, he's got to commit just about now. There we go. Sound barrier EMP in. They need to get the closeout. They need to get the kills. Self-destruct gives second space, but they need to get kills still. They have only barely got Shaolin out of the mech here, looking to close out on Mui. Queen getting aggressive, pushes people back into the base. That does actually give them space to maybe get more in terms of point progress, but kills are king, and it's Hong Kong Attitude getting said kills.
At the end of the day, though, you have got that second 6. Xavier Esports, the objective is partially at this stage completed, at least 2/3 of the way it completed, and you saw the way the victory happened as well. Hong Kong Attitude played very aggressively, did EMP quite early. We did expect them to somewhat make that kind of play. Mui could have held the EMP if he wanted to, but we know he likes to use it there. Xavier Esports, they did wait a little bit, went in, used their own EMP, got that second tick. Now they just got to do the same thing again. Get rid of Mui's EMP, get their own one in there, then win.
Same thing again, and the Bionade onto Olivier means they'll be able to close out him and Dreamer. Mui long since pulled back from that fight. Again, Hong Kong Attitude do need to respect there is a correct time to retreat, but this time, that time has not come yet. They are just able to pull back in their own time.
So now there is a little bit of an X factor here that for Xavier Esports is not what they're looking for, and that is the fact that Hong Kong Attitude have all 5 of their other ultimates, and that is because so far they haven't had to use many other ultimates to win a fight. If they just use an EMP, they being Hong Kong Attitude, they usually win. The other issue is Xavier don't quite have the EMP. They would like to go very quickly now, but they can't because they're waiting.
And if anyone's going to go quickly, it's Hong Kong Attitude. They've got the nano boost. They can go aggressive if they so choose. And there they go, committing it in. Azalea's dead. Oh dear, they needed that EMP to happen. And THK can't even get a good angle onto CQB, unfortunately, even at the end there. Not able to get the wraparound. That just leaves them alone on the point. They're starting to just bleed time now.
This window is closing very rapidly, and I'm talking about 2 windows here. One is the actual time itself for Xavier Esports. The other one is when Mui doesn't have an EMP because it's about to get another one. In fact, you can expect him to get another one when Hong Kong Attitude make this dive. Look at the positioning of Hong Kong Attitude. They're defending, by the way, if you forgot.
This kind of leans into that respawn advantage. There it is, the EMP from Azalea, but he's using it so far ahead of the point. Hong Kong don't mind this, exactly. They can't cap with this. They've got to win the fight, then still win a subsequent fight on the point itself. They've already used 3 of the ultimates they had available. Tay in not committing
counter
his.
EMP.
Yeah, Tay didn't use it. I mean, they'd already committed 3. At that point, you're in for a penny, in for a pound. And now this may be their last shot at it, or at least their second to last. And Hong Kong Attitude have stabilized because Xavier, despite pulling the trigger on so many things, they pulled them at the wrong time and they didn't pull them on enough.
You fell into the trap that Hong Kong Attitude laid right out there for you, which is we are going to force a fight very early at your spawn, then you're going to ultimate into us, and when you do, we can pull backwards, knowing that even if we lose this fight, you will not cap off it, because we will respawn in time, you will not.
I would rather Xavier used all their ultimates at the wrong time and at least got a little bit more ground than this half-half, because now they're in such a tight spot on this last fight. Actually, there's no beating about the bush with it. They're in a bad spot for this last fight. This sound barrier, this is the last thing they have until this pulse bomb can maybe find a target. It's only just come up on rotation. McCauley's going to be able to answer with one of his own anyway. Mui does go down. That's an opportunity for Xavier, but again, still heavily on the back foot. A Ting does need to stall with this primal rage though. Hong Kong Attitude.
The kills are coming.
They are coming through the way of Xavier, but trades coming back the way of Hong Kong Attitude, and trades always favor the defense. Xavier resetting the mech with the self-destruct, but it doesn't get kills. Mango and Mui both down though. Xavier definitely not down and out for the count just yet, and with that EMP, if they can get the follow up, THK's low, but they're getting it through. They have dropped the last few members. It's only just Shailin and CQB. Not on the point. They did it. Just barely, but they did it.
Right when it counted, right at the end as well, heading into the overtime, the final EMP coming out of Azalea. Not only that, they killed Mui. They stopped the counter EMP from coming through. The Mui counter EMP has been a big tool so far for Hong Kong Attitude. Not just the counter, but also the proactiveness of it so far as well. So for Xavier, right at the final moments. I mean, that very nearly didn't happen. There was a couple of moments there where maybe you'd think it wasn't going to happen, but the kills kept on coming. It looked like it was even, but it wasn't even at all. Xavier clutched it out.
Better late than never. But a point B cap a map win does not make. They still need to hold out on the defense for starters. Ideally, fully hold somewhere. A or B, doesn't matter. Fully hold. Failing that, they go to time bank. What they have done is given themselves a lot of opportunities to win the map. But as per usual, and this is where Xavier have fallen short thus far in the series, they still need to capitalize on those opportunities.
Because we've said so far, right, they've had many opportunities over this entire series. Look at Maps 1, Maps 2, all in there. There have been a plethora of different opportunities, most of which unfortunately have not been capitalized. Some of them have been, but most of them haven't been because they haven't won either of those two maps. Now you're right, they have now the opportunity to complete this defense on either A or B, and even failing that, going into time bank, that's another opportunity. They don't even lose if they get capped out here. They only lose if they fail to conclude this game in the time bank.
One thing I can say about time bank is I don't think that point A offense would go the same way a second time for Xavier. But that's time bank. That's a separate thing altogether. That is potentially in the future, potentially not at all if Xavier can get this hold out. But that does put pressure on Hong Kong Attitude here. They have to get into that time bank and then win it from there.
So we've seen this already previously in our last series. Talent versus Blank Esports. Blank had pretty much this exact same defense, just with a Torb instead. And we see that. We see, okay, it's a pretty good defense, but what is it weak to? It's weak to the EMP. Who has an EMP? It's going to be Mui very soon.
And Mui took a chunk of damage there, which means he hasn't been able to set up this flank to charge up the EMP until now. Only able to just get into it as THK catches McCulty with a headshot. So this is actually taking quite a long time already for Hong Kong Attitude.
This is part of the way that Xavier can really make this work, right? Because consider that Xavier got that A cap nearly instantly. They just blitzed straight on top of it. Hong Kong Attitude could not respond in time. That was the cap completed. So far, Hong Kong Attitude, they've spent nearly 1 minute to just break it.
And this is what we talked about. Xavier slowing down the game, but the dive. It's not time to slow down anymore. It's time to go, go, go. They counter trade with Mui, but Xavier goes down. Pacer up with his life. Dreamer getting pressured. They do pop a ting. But as long as Shailin is in the mix and in the mech, they've got a tank and they will leverage the bejesus out of it. Xavier just losing too many members to keep presence on this point. And the few from Hong Kong Attitude that did die do get the respawn anyway.
It's also important members, right? Because you need to see guys like Azalea on the Junkrat alive to continue damaging output against Hong Kong Attitude. If he goes down early, which he did, there's just not enough response damage. You can still maybe rely on THK as the Widowmaker, but also that's not going to be enough because Shailin was putting pressure on him as well. So it's going to be a 6-minute something offense now on the B. Xavier had around this much time, and they only kept it in the overtime.
Hong Kong Attitude, as they gear up to this EMP, should be able to use that as a win tool here. Xavier trying to do that same aggressive defense, but they overextend. Hong Kong Attitude, they know their own plays. They know them like the back of their calloused workman's hands because these guys are putting in the hours, putting in the hard yards here as they start scrapping on the point. And they've got the tools at their disposal as per usual. Waiting to the right time to commit. That's going to be, wow, in the nick of time as well. A ting using that Primal Rage just before getting hacked. Dreamer's going to pop down here. Xavier losing pressure on the point. It's already a third for Hong Kong Attitude. Sound Barrier will give them the legs to get the kills, to get more Azalea. Even if he commits it now, he's going to be him and Olivier following up with just the two of them. Second, third going over. He's got to commit it now. He's hacked. He can't translocate in. Even if he could, he can't use the EMP. And instead, he's going to die. Mui catching him on the flank. That might have been the hack of the century there. Hack the planet. No, just hack the other Sombra. That's all you need. Hong Kong Attitude still in control despite Mango Jai still not going down, only just at the end of that to Dreamer's Coalescence, but Dreamer pays for it with his life. Maybe Azalea, indeed, he will get it this time, but there is no follow-up, and with 5 minutes going into the time bank.
That is absolutely ridiculous considering that there is no time on the other side. They're going to get that 1 minute bonus, but that means that the other team, Hong Kong Attitude, also gets that 1 minute bonus. You can see the faces of Xavier Esports right now almost stumped. What happened there? The defense fell apart. The A defense did hold for some time. That was where that 3-minute buffer came from, or at least a minute and a half, maybe even 2-minute buffer. But that B just disappeared. Even at the final moments, I think Azalea going in the EMP from him was probably not going to be enough, but like, I mean, rubbing salt into the wound even, Nui getting that final hack, such a great play from them. We know Hong Kong Attitude have what it takes, and even in those final engagements, seeing the aggressive movements from Xavier Esports to try and mimic what Hong Kong Attitude do to them, Hong Kong Attitude, they punish in a way that Xavier should have been punishing Hong Kong Attitude the entire time.
That's what Xavier need to learn from doing that. Look, I can respect Xavier seeing what Hong Kong Attitude have been doing to them, seeing how well it works, and going, hey, let's do this ourselves. But don't play Hong Kong Attitude's game against them. They're better at it than you. Play your game.
Play it against them only if you also have a very deep understanding of where your limits are, because so far, Hong Kong Attitude have enough knowledge of their limits to say, okay, well, we can dive this far, we can make these things happen. This is also why we are making this dive happen as well. The reasons of which we are making these decisions. You don't see that so far out of Xavier. You just see the mimicry.
5 minutes, 1/3 to clinch the series, to punch their ticket to a semi-final, to secure now their second guaranteed top 4. That is where Hong Kong Attitude have pushed this series, and so far, deservedly so. Your back cannot be any closer to the wall than Xavier's is right now.
And for Xavier as well, if that original A defense had been better, you'd say maybe they could do this, but with 5 minutes on the clock for Hong Kong Attitude, quickly they managed to get through A. Originally, you got to think it doesn't look good for Xavier.
No, they've already split them up. Mui was able to slip around the side and just causes chaos on the back line. Good counter trades, but once again, taking out one of the tanks traditionally has proved to not quite be enough to really count Hong Kong Attitude out. This time they're losing a Ting, does make it a little bit harder. Yeah, they have lost Queen here, losing Olivier's mech. Even with both tanks out of the picture, you can't count Hong Kong Attitude out. And Mui's got an EMP to slam dunk the fight, to punch the ticket to the final. The right-click hack earlier did it. Doesn't even need the EMP. Hong Kong Attitude 3-0. They have bought the rematch against Blank, and they have set their sights even further beyond to the finals.
And it turns out Queen's Thunderbolt and Lightning, not very frightening. And it's going to be Hong Kong Attitude finally getting the deserved 3-0. Look, this was a decent effort coming out from Xavier Esports. And mind you, that was going to be my last opportunity to bring that one up, because we're not going to see Xavier Esports again, at least not for this season, because that's it. They are eliminated.
Exactly, they are eliminated, and that does mean another one bites the dust. But for Hong Kong Attitude, they get to go on a little bit further, and at least for now, they are the champions.
I got no more.
I backed these up all season.
I've only get I'm a little. Unlike Xavier Esports, it's time for us to use this. Time for us to commit these
commit these jokes. Yeah, exactly. And I'm a little disappointed they didn't go further, because like I've got more, and now I don't get an opportunity to use them.
Next season.
At least not until season 2, because that is the one thing that Xavier can say here. They did have a good performance. They did come into this as the 3rd seed from their group after a decent season, some good performances, some bad. And they do at least get to come back now for season 2. They will have scoured this quarterfinal VOD by then. They will have looked at everything that went right and definitely everything that went wrong. I think they are going to come back stronger for it, but it is going to have to be a comeback. Their journey for now ends here. Hong Kong Attitude, on the other hand, they've still got some room ahead of them, and who knows how far the story goes.
And how perfect is it that we get, both of which, that we get to see the Hong Kong Attitude versus Blank rematch, but also 3 of the 4 returning teams from OPC Season 2 have made it into the top 4. The 3 that maybe we expect to see, the 3 that have been stronger based on history, and of course, the one newcomer as well, Jet Korea, going to be meeting the mistake again to sort of recap how the semi-final, or rather quarterfinal, ended. Oasis, Hollywood, Horizon, Lunar Colony. That Oasis was very close, 100 to 99s all the way. But right at the end there was all Hong Kong Attitude. Let's take also a look at the Blank series against Talent Esports. Technically a 3-0, but there was that tie in the middle.
And that's the one hiccup here for Blank that maybe makes them a little bit nervous coming into the semi-final. And they do have that rematch against Hong Kong Attitude in said semi-final, a team that they have so much history with. These 2 teams, they have scrapped and brawled time and time again throughout all of last year with both seasons of OPC, and as we mentioned before, culminating in the Season 2 bronze final, which Blank did ultimately end up winning, even though they had lost their most recent performance against Hong Kong Attitude. Prior to that, the jostling between these 2 teams has been a mainstay. I think there is no more fitting an opponent for both of these teams in their semi-final, but it does also mean that once again, one of those 2 teams will finally eliminate the other.
And that's exactly how I want to see the chips fall. Let's take a look at that bracket now. We've seen every single quarterfinal, 3-0, 3-1, 3-0, and another 3-0. It's 12-1 combined. The combined score for all the winners into the semi-finals, and now unequivocally the best 4 teams: Detonator Korea, Mega, Blank Esports, Hong Kong Attitude, 3 returning teams from OPC, 1 incredibly good newcomer. How will the season of Contenders unfold? Because now, truly I can say, I have no idea who's going to win.
And it's those 3 teams, the 3 returning teams that we said from the start, this season compared to last year, they finally saw the way ahead clear. They finally saw this could be their chance. This could be the season where they get to be champion, having never quite made it in the past. But of course, of those 3, only 1 can make it, and it might not even be one of them. It could be the newcomer. It could be Detonator Korea. And I think this is such a fitting way for things to play out. We have got that hot new team. We've got Detonator Korea in here. We've got Mega, who have finally broken into that top 4. And also with Xavier being eliminated, now carry the entire hopes of all 4 of the Thai teams from Season 1 of Contenders here. We've got Blank and Hong Kong Attitude both returning to the playoffs. Blank now their 3rd showing. They're the only team here to have made every single Pacific region playoffs at this level, and only 2 of them get to go into that final.
And that's the sad thing, right? We have to say goodbye to another 2 teams, and it's just so fitting because, I mean, these are our exact matches. We have, you know, multiple storylines here. The fact that, look, we've already talked about 3 returning teams, but also Detonator Korea. This is kind of like a royal road for them. They're coming fresh into this level of gameplay, at least in Pacific, and they look like they're probably, you know, one of the favorites to win it. Very much similar to what Ardian had, but the difference is, when we look at Contenders, this is a much more beatable team than Overwatch, which makes it a lot exciting. We had a 4-0 grand final in OPC Season 2. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think it's going to, for a best of 7 grand final, it could go very many different ways. Generally, are not infallible.
And I don't even know if they make it to that final. That's the truth of it as well. They could drop to Mega in that semi-final. There is so much fallibility here. I mean, I would have to say the quarterfinal is probably the only match of this playoff series that I felt they were really just legitimately almost guaranteed to win. And that's kind of it. From there, they are officially into the hardest point of their season. And I think there is an interesting factor that will start to come up for that team as well. We'll get to talk about this more on the day of their semi-final, but this will also be the first time I think this team is going to get pushed, and I mean really push.
And that's an exciting thing to look at as well. And I'm also excited about the other one. I like to preview what we have to look forward to because I can't understate exactly how important these matches are. But before we get into any more of that, let's get into the post-match interview with Mui, which I'll translate over.
那我们这边赛后访问到的选手是 Mui， 跟大家打个招呼。
好，我是 HK 的 Mui。
今天我跟你们队友聊天，他们说他们很有信心在一开始的时候，你那时候也是这样觉得吗？
一开始很有信心啊，对啊。
Seems like people quite excited. Were you quite excited? He said yes.
好像有点抖
哦，我们主场就说他好像不太行啊。
I think the team was maybe a little bit asleep.
应该是啦，应该是啊。
都自己说自己雷了，应该就是他的问题，是不是？那今天刚刚主播赛面有聊到，就是刚刚甚至最后一场的时候，其实你害影是超会钻、超会找位置。当你在想打破口的时候，你有特地在寻找对手。
Do you have very specific strategies or movements you like to make?
我们进去就是看到。
队友
use a lot of opportunity.
不能讲，不能讲，不能讲。
反正就是看到人就杀了。
When I see someone, I go for it.
看到人就杀。我刚刚一问完，全部人叫不可以说。
And I believe coaches offside said don't tell too much.
跟你的队友聊天，他们还说你们昨天在练习的时候还吵架了。
So I heard that even yesterday during scrims, you were having some arguments in the team.
就是气氛。 就蛮差的，
气氛不太好。
I feel like our attitude right now is still looking to improve. It's probably one of the lacking parts, but
打比赛的时候，团队气氛还是非常重要的。那因为接下来你们要面对的对手其实都非常的强劲，这方面 HKA 有提早做准备了吗
？So what kind of preparations have you made for the playoffs?
有啦有啦。
We have definitely made preparations.
不好是不是？
没有。
毕竟之前有对过嘛，上一季的时候。对，还算了解对方。好了，那我们这边谢谢
you have faced Blank before.
我们比赛到这边告一个段落，那我们下周一样还有我们精彩的斗争特工太苗节竞技赛喽。
That was the post-match interview there with Mui. So There it is. There was obviously some interesting thoughts from him.
Yeah, they need to work on their Hong Kong attitude.
They certainly do. He was holding back the laughter.
I couldn't believe that was the answer.
It's something to do with, like, you know, the fact that they are having some good results, but they are still trying to get that team together. I feel like that's always part of the journey, but the journey does not end here for the top 4 teams that will continue next week into the final week of playoffs, into the final week of Contenders Pacific Season 1. The final 4 teams, who gets to go to the grand final, and ultimately who gets to win? That is the question we are all asking. If you want to know the answer to that question, join us here again next Thursday. Until then, though, we'll see you again soon.